Okay, folks, today we're going to discuss near-death experiences and what happens to people that have been brought back from the dead. So why am I talking about this? Well, I had a little comment on one of my threads saying that someone would like to know more about this side of what I do. So here I am, just to show you that I do read the comments. So to everybody else that probably hasn't met me or know anything about me or wonder what gives me the authority to even talk about this stuff. So for 13 years, I worked as a frontline nurse. I specialized in counseling people who'd just been handed a death sentence. And what I'm talking about here is people in their 40s, sometimes 30s, 40s and 50s that would come in with a little bit of pain. And the next thing they know, they've been handed a death sentence. They've been told they've got inoperable cancer or something serious has happened to them. And I got experienced in talking to these people and asking them really the questions that matter. And not only that, but in my capacity as a medical nurse, we brought a lot of people back from the dead. And it fascinated me. What were their experiences? What did you see, hear, feel, think? I must have talked to over 500 people who've been clinically dead and we've brought them back. And I've got, if you take those cases and the people who were facing death, who'd been given a death sentence by the medical condition, then I have over 1,000 cases of people that I've directly dealt with. So I have a lot of experience in this area. In fact, it was a question from a patient who'd just been handed a death sentence that pretty much changed my life as a well-being practitioner. I was medically trained, and my whole reality was the medical model. And after keep getting people at the end of the line where the NHS used to say, there's nothing we can do for you. Is there any hope? Is the question that people want to know the answer to. And that's understandable. I think so many people have faith in the medical system. Uh, it's it's almost they don't even question what doctors say. Now, if there's one thing I want you to take from this video, question everything. And nobody is as good a practitioner at looking after your health than you are. One thing I've learned from my time in the NHS is to be more in tune with my own body and to push back when doctors are not giving me what I feel is the right thing. So anyway, that's a different topic for a different day. Me falling out with doctors or butting heads with them, that was a frequent flyer during my time in the NHS. Question everything, folks. Question everything. So a fascinating area this is, especially when people have been brought back from the dead. Now, first thing, I know that there's going to be people out there that say, well, if you've been brought back, then you weren't dead. So let's define what is death. So in nursing, in the medical profession, we have a thing called clinical death. If somebody's heart stops beating for over a minute, then that's clinical death. Clinically, they are dead. Now, if we resuscitate them, then obviously they're back alive again. But that's the distinction we make. Clinical death. Your heart stops beating for over a minute. So let's start there. Now, let's also say straight off the bat that probably between 80 to 70 to 80% of people that go through this, in my experience, this is by no means a research stat, but in my experience, and I have a lot of experience in this area, about 70 to 80% of people don't remember anything. So the most common thing for people that have been clinically dead that are brought back, they remember nothing. That's the most common thing. But amongst those 20 to 30% of people that did remember something, well, I'm going to list the things that they came up with on this video. And I'm also going to tell you the list of awarenesses, of regrets, of epiphanies that they had for people that have gone through that when death has become a reality. So let's just look into a book that I read several years ago when I got interested in this. There's a book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by a chap called Sogyal Rinpoche, Sogyal, Rinpoche, Ranpoche. One of the best books I ever read for somebody that was working with people that was facing death. And forget the rest of the content of the book. What he says is this: a guy that grew up in the East, he grew up in Tibet, and then he studied in America, went over to the West. And he said that the biggest difference between Eastern and Western cultures is that in the East, we prepare for death from the moment we're born. In the West, nobody prepares for death. Nobody even deals with death until it's that close. And this was my experience of working with death. It hits people hard. And it's the only guarantee of life, folks. We all live like we're immortal. And then one day you wake up and suddenly somebody hands you a death sentence, and it's coming to all of us. Unless you die really suddenly and don't get a chance to think about this stuff, everybody has to deal with this at some stage in their life. So this is actually a really important topic. Tends to be one I don't talk about that often because most people don't really want to talk about death. But here we are, folks. Here we are. So let's look at the things that people used to come back with. So a common one was they saw a tunnel of light and they felt drawn towards it. And every single one of them that recalled anything recalls it being a very peaceful process. Now, some see that same tunnel of light and also get a visit from a dead relative. And usually they say, look, your time isn't up yet. You haven't finished what you came here to do. You need to go back. So there's two of them, the light being the prevalent thing and people feeling drawn towards this tunnel of light. Another one, people used to say, my life flashed before me. They had this complete and profound awareness of everything in their life, just coming down, like flashing through their mind. A total awareness of everything that mattered and everything that didn't, and all of the significant events that had happened to them flashed before them. I heard this one quite a bit. Now, probably the toughest one, the one, I mean, all of those things people could say. People could say, they could make them up. But the thing, there was one time a woman, she was clinically dead for over 5 minutes. Now, that usually brings about a degree of brain death. That's a long time to be flatlining. And some doctors may have called it before we actually reached the point where we brought this woman back. And when we brought her in, I'm getting chills in my spine just recalling this. And again, you know, I don't expect anyone to believe me. I wouldn't have believed this if I hadn't experienced it directly. She told us that while we were trying to resuscitate her, she was in the corner of the room watching us, detached from her body, completely from the corner of the room. She was able to tell us what we did during that time, what we said during that time, and details that there's no way that she could have guessed or blagged from someone that was clinically dead at the time with their eyes closed and their heart stopped beating. And that for me was a wow moment. I'd heard of things like astral travel. Well, that's what it sounds like. She astral traveled to the corner of the room and was able to tell us everything. So they're things that people experience. Now, there may be more, but they're just the frequent flyer ones that I heard. But one thing that's very clear with everyone, whether they remember or not, when you become aware that death was that close, when you get a real experience of, wow, that was a seriously close call, a near-death experience, call it what you want, priorities tend to shift. People tend to wake up to what's important in their life and what isn't. And really, whether we're alive or dead, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if we're so many people are alive in the way that we see it now, but they're more dead than alive. They're living an existence where they're trapped. They feel no energy. They feel no fun, no happiness, and no purpose. That's most people, folks, when push comes to shove. And when we talk about the biggest killers, cancer, strokes, and heart attacks, these dis-eases, dis-ease. Break that word up. Dis-ease. When people have dis-ease at life and their circumstances, then disease is the occurrence. Here's the question. Everyone I ever nursed who had heart attacks, strokes, or cancer, I always used to ask the same question, and everyone could answer it like that. What in the last 6 months to 12 months has caused you elevated amounts of stress? If you want to know what causes dis-ease, folks, ask yourself that question. Now, a near-death experience tends to jolt you. It is a bit like the paddles that, boom, when you realize that it could have been dead today. That usually jolts people out of their dis-ease and gets them to reprioritize on things that are important. So it doesn't matter whether there's life after death. You probably don't think about that. But is there life within life? Are you more dead than alive or more alive than dead? There's the question, folks. That's the real question that you need to ask yourself. And whether life after death is real or not, here's one thing that I learned in that situation. And this is coming from somebody who was agnostic. I was agnostic when I was in my nursing days. And because I've dealt with so many people that have been in this zone, I now absolutely believe in life after death. And life and death come down to one thing at the end of it. Do you want to believe that this is it? Or do you want to believe that there's something else beyond this life? And I have 100% track record of convincing even atheists that there's something else beyond here. And the reason why is because ultimately it's the better choice. It's a better choice, folks. And most people believe in it anyway. Eastern religions absolutely believe in it. Every single religion on the planet believes in a force after life, whether that's an energy, reincarnation, whatever it is. So if you believe that there's nothing, statistically, you're in a minority. But here's one thing I can tell you absolutely, folks. I've seen the most devoutly religious people doubt themselves when it becomes a reality. And I've seen the most unbelievable atheists suddenly embrace this when push came to shove and when death was there. So there you go, folks. There's a video on my experiences of dealing with those that had been brought back from the dead, folks, being brought back from the dead. And there's also what I'm going to do is encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you're new to it, because I'm going to be drip feeding information to help you to wake up to your bigger purpose and to have more happiness and flow in your life and connect with a better community. And that's your subscription. Here, folks, I'm going to offer you the next video. If you're curious about this topic, then watch this video, because this is one I recorded that really got people talking. So there you go. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening into here. And definitely, if you're still here now, then you should subscribe, because this video and this content and this channel is for you.